Fortnite deleted this item after 7 minutes. The Eye of the Storm was added in Chapter 1, and this item acted like a back bling. But it actually showed you the future of storm circles. But for some reason, Fortnite deleted it after only a few minutes. But wait, because later in this video, there are some completely forgotten items, and I bet you didn't know them. The Gravitron was Fortnite's gravity gun. You could pick up cars, pick up rocks, and even builds and yeet them at enemies. It was one of the most fun items ever made, but it came out in Chapter 2 Season 7 and disappeared just a few weeks later. It never returned, making it one of Fortnite's rarest items in the game. Honestly, I really want to see this return. I at least want it in creative mode. But next up, we have a different situation, because we have a back bling that Fortnite removed even after players had already bought it with their real money, the Gunner Pet back bling. In Chapter 1 Season 6, Fortnite released the very first pet, and one of these pets was called Bonesy. It was just a dog with a little bandana around its neck, and well, Fortnite thought it would be a good idea to release the dog named Gunner. This was the exact same dog, except it had a green mask on, and the mask is almost the same color as the fur, so people couldn't even tell there was a difference. Fortnite removed this from their lockers and repaid them and said, sorry, we messed up. But this one is really recent, because in Chapter 6 Season 4, Fortnite released a brand new airstrike gun. You point it, and when you push the button, a giant bomb drops from the sky. This was ridiculously overpowered, and only after 1 day the weapon was removed. I guess because it was just too OP, so that must have been why. They ended up adding this back, but it was really weird they removed it. Alright, and next up, the Mimic Bomb was teased but never actually released. It was meant to create a fake chest. You could place it down as an item, and when you placed it, it looked exactly like a real chest. But when opened by players, it would explode and hurt them and damage them. Leakers found it in the files one day, but Fortnite scrapped it and it never came to the game. The Infinity Blade was one of the most controversial items in Fortnite because it was extremely overpowered, and this was before it got nerfed. When it originally came out, you could build with it, but Fortnite had to remove this weapon early because it was too OP. A lot of you guys didn't know it was removed early. The airstrike grenade was an extremely forgotten item. Not the new one, but the old one. Mostly because this grenade was extremely weak. You would throw it and it would make an alert and drop airstrikes on players in that location, destroying all of the builds and items nearby. It was pretty good for applying pressure, but honestly in any other situation it was just weak. This next one was one of the most creative items in Fortnite. In Chapter 1 Season 9, Fortnite released the Storm Flip, and players instantly hated it. When you threw it, it would clear out a giant area of storm, making it clear to be there. That meant you could literally make safe zones in storm fights, which was insanely broken in tournaments. It only lasted a single season before being vaulted forever. The Recycler was one of the strangest weapons ever added to Fortnite. You literally had to suck up materials and junk from the environment, then fire it back as explosives. It was creative but felt super weak and clunky compared to the other weapons. Fortnite literally vaulted it after just 1 season, and it hasn't been in the game since. But this next one you already know about, the Zapatron. It was removed after around 30 minutes originally and never seen until 7 years later, which was honestly really shocking. But back in Chapter 1 Season 7, Fortnite tested a mechanic called Siphon. A lot of you guys would notice this because it's in some game modes. But you would get health after every kill, and players loved it because it made public lobbies a little more competitive. But Fortnite actually didn't like that idea. They removed it quickly, saying it made the skill gap too high for casual players. And to this day, it's one of the most requested features ever. But believe it or not, Fortnite almost had a full first-person mode. Leakers found it, and even Epic accidentally added it during Chapter 4. but it was insanely buggy and your gun would glitch through your face, and the builds didn't even line up. Epic instantly fixed it, and it still hasn't been released today, besides a few game modes. But this one broke Fortnite for a week. In Chapter 1 Season 6, Epic suddenly made glider redeploy available in all modes. That meant you could jump off of anything and just fly away, but it ruined fights completely, and after just a few days of complaints, Epic had to remove it. It was kinda split though, a lot of people liked it, a lot of people hated it. Now it only shows up in limited time modes or as special items. But the unstable bow was added in Chapter 2 Season 6, but barely anyone remembers it. Every shot fired would randomly change to a different type of bow. A shockwave bow, a fire bow, a stink bow, or explosive bow. It was unpredictable and hard to use, and after one season it was gone forever. But the bottle rockets honestly sounded cool. They were one of the weakest items in Fortnite though. You placed them down and they shot fireworks at enemies, but they barely did any damage and were super easy to avoid. And because of that, Epic vaulted them quickly, and most players forgot they existed. The Zapper Trap was weird. Instead of placing it on a wall, you threw it at builds and it instantly zapped anyone inside. It was fun, but super situational, and because it bypassed normal traps, players thought it was really unfair. So Fortnite decided to vault it quickly, and it never came back. But the Storm Scout Sniper looked normal, but had one insane ability. It showed the next storm circle. This meant players could rotate perfectly and always stay ahead of the zone. Competitive players hated it because it gave too much of an advantage, and Fortnite quickly removed it, and it's only shown up a few times since. The boombox was added in Chapter 1 Season 7, and it completely destroyed every build around. You'd throw it down and it blasted loud music that instantly shredded walls. It was hated by almost everyone because it took away skill from build fights, and Fortnite vaulted it after just weeks and has never returned. But the shield bubble was a giant dome that blocked all bullets and explosives. Okay, you might think you know this one, but actually you might be thinking of the mini shield bubble, because for the past few years the shield bubble has not been in the game. Instead, a small version called the mini shield bubble. There used to be a way bigger one that was way more overpowered and way more fun, but it was a little overpowered, so they had to nerf it. Just like the railgun, because it was added in Chapter 2 Season 7 and it was terrifying. You could charge it up and shoot straight through any walls, dealing massive damage too. Competitive players called it broken since building couldn't even protect you anymore, and it only makes rare appearances now. But the bandage bazooka was a really interesting one. You could shoot bandages at teammates and heal them instantly. It took up 2 inventory slots, but this was later replaced by the slurp cannon. So honestly, if you thought you recognized the bandage bazooka, you probably recognized it because of the slurp cannon. We haven't seen the bandage bazooka since because honestly the slurp is just so much better. The scoped revolver was one of those why does this even exist items. It was a revolver but with a scope. It was weak and slow and nobody ever used it. It stayed in the game for a short time before being vaulted. Most players forgot it even existed. But that's similar to the fire trap because it was one of Fortnite's attempts to bring back traps after they removed the original spike trap. It did 50 damage and set players and builds on fire. But people hated it, saying that it was kinda useless, and Fortnite vaulted it after a short time, and it's honestly never returned. Similar to the parasites, because in Chapter 2 Season 7, alien parasites appeared across the island. If they latched onto your head, they drained your health but gave you extra mobility. They're pretty controversial, but what's even crazier is that they actually affected voice chat too, making your voice sound like an alien while infected.
What does mine sound like?
They were gone after one season, never to return. But a small feature that was removed from the game went completely unnoticed for years by many players. Back in Chapter 1 and 2, Fortnite had map grid lines that would help you find locations. But one day, Fortnite decided they would remove these, and since it was such a small detail, nobody really noticed. But something everybody noticed was at the start of Chapter 4, Fortnite introduced hurdling, where your character would automatically vault over objects, but it was so broken, and players would launch into the sky, glitch through builds, and even teleport. Epic removed it just after a few days, and it returned a few years later, but a lot of people still do not like this. The Firefly launcher, also called the Flamethrower, was leaked during Chapter 2. It was supposed to shoot fireflies as a weapon, but it was never officially released. Epic faulted it before players could even try it. It remains one of the few unreleased weapons that people still talk about. But this one was extremely weird. Back in Chapter 1, Fortnite had plans to add the Big Poppy Balloon. This was a giant balloon that, when thrown down, would expand and blow up until all structures and builds were destroyed nearby. It looked really OP, and I'm glad this never came to the game. Well, that's all for today's video. If I forgot any, let me know in the comments. Watch the video on the screen for more Fortnite secrets. I'll see you guys there. Use code PBJ.